Welcome back to Dad Life. My name is Kevin, serving up all sorts of new parenting videos. You know, when my wife and I had our baby, we were in the middle of this coronavirus lockdown, and there were just not that many references. All the classes were canceled, so we just asked people stuff. We asked friends, neighbors, family, and there weren't that many YouTube videos. So I'm hoping by making a lot of these YouTube videos, it helps new parents, new dads, and it helps them just kind of be more prepared for the wild ride that is life. So today we're gonna talk about our schedule for the first 2 months. So, you know, we're going into the 3rd month with our daughter. The schedule has changed now in the 3rd to 4th month. And after that, I'll make another schedule video, but a lot of people are asking me, you know, what schedule are you guys doing? What are you doing when? What? And so I'm just gonna go through for the first 2 months. Our schedule has basically been the same. I'll kind of go through the whole day and then like who's doing what at various points throughout the day. And then like all my videos, we'll bring my wife in, we'll talk to her, we'll get her thoughts on the schedule, and we'll go from there. So yeah, like there just wasn't that many resources for this kind of stuff. When we had our daughter, we're like, what do we do? You know, we asked the nurses questions. You know, we asked my neighbor. We watched a couple YouTube videos, but there weren't that many references. So I'm really hoping this video helps you guys. And just remember, like every baby's different. It's trite, but it's true. And the schedules that work for us might not work for you, but maybe you can learn from what we did, and maybe learning what another couple did will help you. So this is our first child, and this is what we did for the first 2 months. Basically, so for the first month, they're gonna tell you to feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours, not more than 4 hours. And for the first, I'm gonna round 2 months down the first 8 weeks, because after the 8th week, things started to change a little bit and they started to get better. But for the first 8 weeks, that baby was feeding every 2 to 4 hours. Additionally, and this is something that might be different for a lot of people watching, my wife was able to breastfeed for that entire 8 weeks. We did do some bottles just to test out using a bottle, but for the first 8 weeks, my wife breastfed. So that changes the schedule of who's doing what drastically. If you're giving the baby bottles during the first 8 weeks or during the first 4 weeks, that's gonna change things, and it's gonna make it easier for the woman or for the person that was breastfeeding, whatever. We didn't do that, so props to my wife. So just know that if you're doing bottles, and that's what we're doing, you know, going into the next couple months, which will change who's doing what at any given time, because obviously if we're giving the baby bottles, that really frees up my wife to get more sleep and just be more independent. But for these first 8 weeks, basically no bottles, and my wife breastfed the entire time. So this is what we did. I am obsessed with efficiency. So when we were in the hospital, like talking about, okay, how are we gonna do this? I was like, we're gonna be as efficient as possible. And I have a video on tips and tricks for dealing with a newborn. Be efficient. If you have a normal baby and you guys are normal adults and whatever, you don't need 2 people to watch that kid. So take advantage of that, be efficient, and our schedule was maximized around efficiency. So this is what we did. I'm gonna start it at 8 a.m. and go 24 hours. In the early morning, between like 7 and 10 a.m., my wife watched the baby and fed her. At 10 a.m., I would wake up, and I'll tell you why I get up at 10 a.m. when we get to the end of the day. My wife would feed her, I would take the baby, and my wife would go back to sleep. And she'd get 3 hours off. So she would sleep till about 1 or 2 p.m. I would watch the baby. Between like 1 and 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. So there'd be a feed at like 4. So her and I, this goes against what I said, but her and I would be watching the baby together. And it was just nice during the day. It's just nice to have time. You know, I was on paternity leave. So there would be a 6-hour window, you know, 1 to 7 p.m. where we would be watching the baby together. At 7 p.m., I forced my wife to go to bed. So she would feed the baby at like 6:37, go to bed. At 10:30, I'm a wet nurse. I'm not a wet nurse. I'm a night nurse. I would just literally take the baby up to my wife. Then my wife would wake up and be groggy, feed the baby, and I would immediately take the baby away and take her downstairs. I wanted my wife to have at least 6 to 7 hours in that bedroom without the baby, because she just would sleep better at first knowing the baby wasn't in there, and I get it. So 7 p.m. to about 2 a.m., I would just be a night nurse. So carry the baby up, she'd feed her, carry the baby down. Now, if we were doing bottles, and we're going to be doing bottles going forward, that's when I would give the bottles so my wife could sleep. We didn't do that for the first 8 weeks. So from 7 p.m. to about 2 a.m., my wife would have to wake up twice for about 20 minutes each to feed, and then I would just grab the baby and take her away. And then at between 1 and 3 a.m., it just depends on the feeding, I would give the wife to my baby, and then my wife would sleep with the baby next to her, and I would go to sleep. And then I would sleep like 2 or 3 a.m. to like 8 to 10 a.m. So I would kind of like work in like second shift. So that is in a nutshell what we did. So in the early mornings, my wife would have the baby. During the day, we would have the baby together. And then from 7 p.m. to about 2 a.m., I would have the baby. And then, give her to my wife, feed her and take her away. And then my wife would sleep. My wife would get, a couple 2 to 3 hour blocks of sleep when I had the baby. And then my wife would continue to get 2 to 3 hour blocks of sleep when she had the baby. I would just be sleeping too. So basically the goal was give my wife 12 hours in bed. So 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. She's obviously not sleeping 12 hours, but within those 12 hours of being in bed, she could get, 8 to 10 hours of sleep in 2 to 4 hour chunks. So obviously it's not great. She's not getting 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, but she was still in bed, resting between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. And she was able to get multiple, 2 to 4 hour chunks of sleep in that 7 to 7 time window. So that's what we did, like shifted it. We each took shifts, and then I took the late night shift, and my wife took the morning shift, and then we would just swap off. And then a lot of the times, like at 3 p.m., my wife would get tired, and like 3 to 6, 3 to 5, she would go nap during the day. So basically I traded off staying up late for the ability to sleep. So I would sleep while my wife did the 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. feeds. But the flip side was I would stay up late and allow my wife to sleep with the baby not in the room for many hours. So that's what we did for the first 8 weeks. That's changing now that we can do bottles. So I can give the late night bottle, and my wife will be able to get 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. I'm gonna do a separate video on the 3rd and 4th month feeding schedule. But yeah, that was our schedule for the first basically 2 months. And now, as always, let's bring my wife in. We'll get her thoughts on what went well, what didn't go well, and we'll hear from the true master here. So what did you think of the feeding schedule for the first 8 weeks?
I think it worked out well because for at least the first month, we were on a strict feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours, which meant at most I was going to get 2 hours of sleep at a time. So to kind of maximize how much sleep I could get, I think it was helpful that, I would go to bed super early. Kevin would stay up with the baby, and then just bring her to me for the next feed, and then I'd keep sleeping. And we'd do that for at least two stretches until late in the middle of the night. And so that would help me at least get some solid sleep where I wasn't stressed about, being responsible for her next to me while she was sleeping. And I think early on, I didn't sleep very well with her next to me, even if she was totally still and not making a noise, because I was just so nervous. I'd wake up every few seconds and check on her to make sure she was still breathing. So I've gotten over that.
Is there anything you changed about the first 8 weeks?
I don't think so, because breastfeeding went well. The only other option would be if I wanted to start pumping right away and have you, give her a bottle in there. But honestly, I don't know how much that would change, because I'd still have to pump if I wasn't feeding her.
So that is it. Thank you all for watching. I'm really hoping that people watching this who are having a baby get something out of it. This is just what we did. It worked for us. It's not perfect for my wife, but she was still able to get some sleep. and you know, we got through it. So this was our schedule. Thank you so much for watching. Like if you like this video, subscribe if you feel like it. Otherwise, we're done here, parents. We'll see everybody on the next Dad Life video. Peace out, parents.